Hello and welcome to the closing ceremony for the fourth Just Transition Platform meeting. I'm Moem Zaidi and I'll be your host. Now, joining me virtually for this high-level roundtable will be representatives from EU coal, heat, shale oil and carbon-intensive regions across countries and regions such as Greece, France, Germany, Hungary, Italy, Finland, Poland, the Netherlands, Spain and the Czech Republic. Now, each of these regions is going to be showcasing their ideas, their ambitions for how they're going to transform their economies to become more sustainable. And it's my pleasure now to introduce to you all the Executive Vice President of the European Commission, Mr. Frans Timmermans. Thank you for joining us and thank you, of course, for leading this roundtable. Right. Now, EVP Timmermans, I should say, as you all are aware, leads the European Commission when it comes to the European Green Deal, so this meeting could not be in better hands. Now, over the next 1.5 hours, we're going to be taking stock of the results of the fourth Just Transition Platform meeting. Now, for anyone who's joining us who isn't quite sure what exactly it is, the Just Transition Platform meeting was created only back in 2020 to leave no region and to leave no one behind in the transition to climate neutrality. This is, of course, one of the new and many tools to help realise the ambition of the EU Green Deal, which is to reduce CO2 emissions by at least 55% by 2030 and to become the world's first climate neutral bloc by 2050. So these are big goals, but they, of course, are achievable if we all do work together. Now, this meeting really couldn't be coming at any better time. Not only are we all becoming, as individuals, more aware of what we need to do to combat climate change, but at the recently concluded UN Climate Conference in Glasgow, so COP26, 18 coal-reliant countries made a commitment to phase down from unabated coal power and phase out inefficient fossil fuel subsidies. This was a historic first. But as we know, making history isn't easy. Neither is moving towards sustainability, but at least we are making progress in that direction. So to understand what EU countries and their regions need and what they need to do, without further ado, let's get to our roundtable. But before we do, there are, of course, some house rules, and I'm going to tell you a bit about the format of this session. So I will give the floor to each regional speaker twice. Each speaker will then have an absolute maximum of 3 minutes to lay out their visions, their key messages for their regions on both occasions. Now, dear speakers, I do warn you that if you go above your time of 3 minutes, I will have to unfortunately cut you off, so please do stick to the allotted time. And roughly after every 3 speakers, I will then turn to the Executive Vice President and ask him for his input. And once we, of course, have done one round, we're then going to repeat the process once again. But this time I'm going to ask the regions how they aim to achieve economic success. So I hope that makes sense for everyone, and especially I hope for everyone joining us online, it gives you a sense of how this session is going to be. So, well, without further ado, let me now hand the floor to the EU Commission's Executive Vice President Frans Timmermans for his keynote address.
Thank you very much. And, I was really looking forward to this exchange. We are now 2 years into the Green Deal. It was a lonely place to be 2 years ago with our Green Deal. It was a world's first. If I look back at the last couple of weeks, especially the conclusions also in COP, we're no longer alone. We have the United States back in full force. And we have a range of countries who've now also moved in the same direction. A year ago, only 30% of the world's economy committed to carbon neutrality by the middle of the century. Today, 90% of the world's economy is committed to carbon neutrality, anywhere between 2040 and 2060. So I believe this is a global movement. And I also believe that the only way this global movement can be successful is if we have a plan to get there. And that's the European Green Deal and our Fit for 55 project. It will get us to at least a reduction of at least 55% of our emissions as compared to 1990 by 2030. And it will get us to climate neutrality by 2050. But we will only get there if we leave no one behind. And we still have 30 coal mining regions in Europe. We still have regions where the industry depends heavily on fossil fuels in an excessive way. And we need to make sure that these regions also profit from the opportunities of this new economy. And for that, we need just transition. And just transition is at the heart of everything we do. But just transition is a promise. And the promise is we will leave no one behind. The promise is also, and I say this as someone coming from a coal mining, that if we do this transition, the jobs and the economic opportunities should be coming to the region, to the people in the region. Because all too often in the past, in going into transition, the jobs went to other parts of a country. The economic growth went to the country as a whole, but very often the region concerned was left behind. We can no longer afford to operate in that way. So when we say just transition, we mean just transition of the region, we mean economic opportunity for the region, and we mean jobs for the people in that region. But since our regions are so different, even though the challenge is very often the same, I'm now very curious to hear from you, from your different perspectives, where your priorities are and how we can be part of those priorities. And I also hope that you will listen to each other, because I'm absolutely convinced that many of you will have brilliant ideas, but these are not necessarily the same ideas. So you can profit from each other's ideas, and we collectively can show to the world that Europe can lead in this transition, and that Europe can also show that there is an economy post-transition that is vibrant, that has high-quality jobs with decent salaries, and that leads to us being able to profit from the world that is coming.
Thank you so much, Executive Vice President Frans Timmermans. Okay, well, time now to go to our first roundtable and to our distinguished speakers. First of all, welcome to all of you from myself and, of course, the Executive Vice President of the Commission, Frans Timmermans. A pleasure to have all of you with us, albeit virtually, of course. So, for the first round, the question is, what is your vision for a just transition in your region? How can the region's actions inspire others in their journey towards a just transition? And we'll go over to our first speaker, which is Barbara Botos, the Deputy State Secretary in charge of Just Transition in Hungary. Now, Hungary is setting the standard for Eastern European countries. Its last coal power plant will be shut down, I believe, by 2025, and it aims to reach 90% carbon neutral electricity generation by 2030. Botos, 3 minutes, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair and Mr. Vice President. Yes, we intend to have coal phase out by 2030, and we could do that by 2060 if all financial resources are available. So that's the official standpoint. So let me just talk about your question. So what the vision for just transition means in our region. So securing just transition is very crucial for Hungary. Why? Because we have prepared 3 just transitional plans for the 3 most affected Hungarian counties in the context of the transition of climate neutrality. Baranya County, which is in the south, this is a carbon-intensive region dependent on construction, cement industry, along with high levels of energy poverty. Its region has a long history of unprepared transition. When the collapse of the mining activity in the 1990s happened, and it left tens of thousands unemployed, and the industrial structure hasn't recovered since. For the other 2 counties in the northeast, for Heves and Borsod Zemplén counties, which are home to the last lignite power plant and its large open cast lignite mines that are to be closed, with serious future implications on economy, employment and residential heating, which is based on lignite. And although these regions differ in their special needs, our vision is similar for them. We need to prepare workers for the challenges of the transition, promote green economic diversification and technological change, and provide sustainable solutions for residential heating needs. By learning from the past, from the not good practices, and preparing for a transition in time, being really focused on the needs of our regions, that's how we can secure that this transition will be a just one. We have informally submitted all the 3 just transition plans to the Commission and waiting for timely feedback to start implementing the just transition in our region. And today, during the other questions as well, I would like to focus on the Matra core regions, where 2 of the 3 just transition plan regions can be found. Why? Because its lignite power plant is the 2nd largest power plant with installed capacity in the country after the nuclear power plant, and this is of major importance for security of supply. It accounts of domestic electricity production of at least 50% of it. And the company is one of the largest employers in the region, with 2,100 people working at the plant and in the open cast mines, and a further 5,000 in companies closely linked to the lignite sector. And this is where I'm going to stop to keep my 3 minutes. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. You were actually under 3 minutes, so well done on that. Okay, over to our second speaker. We have Zdeněk Karasik, the Deputy for Just Transition in Moravian Silesian in the Czech Republic. I hope I pronounced your region correctly. Now, your region has been in the process of transformation since the 1990s. You have 200 years of coal exploitation coming to an end, I believe, by 2038. You have 3 minutes. Please take the floor.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. Speaking about our vision for transition, I can use the slogan which we use, and it is new energy to change the region from coal mining to data mining. And some explanation for this. As you mentioned, we have 200 years of history of coal and steel region, and our transformation started in 1990. And the last coal mine won't be closed in 2038. It is the year for the whole Czech Republic, but in our region, the last coal mine will be closed next year. It means that we are just in the let's say in the center of ending 200 years history of coal mining. I can say that we are also in the last 10 years of transformation, which should be finished by 2030, and it means that the Just Transition initiative is just in time for our region. With regard to some evidence, in 1990 there were about 150,000 of employees in coal sector. Now we have less than 8,000 jobs in coal sector and more than 10,000 jobs in IT sector. And that is the reason why we say that we are in the process from coal mining to data mining. With regard to our let's say super priorities concerning the transition, there are 3 of them. The first one is about people equipped with competencies for life and work in 21st century. And we prepared 2 projects, 2 transformation projects to support this initiative. The second building blocks or super priority for us is business, driven by innovation and our smart specialization. And I can mention that these domains of specialization are new energy, including hydrogen. It is also about automation and robotics. The third one is digitization, including high-performance computing and artificial intelligence. Fourth one is about new materials and green technologies. The fifth one is health and fitness. And the last but not least is about creative and cultural sectors. So these are our future or current domain of specialization. And the third priority is about environment, which means complex reborn of post-mining landscape. We have already prepared a master plan for this redevelopment. We have several transformation projects, and in this year we also succeeded in a European Commission program LIFE. So we received specific LIFE funding, for preparation for climate change, and this is a project done in cooperation with our Polish colleague in Silesia. One of the priorities of us is also about cooperation with Polish Silesia. That's all.
We had a little extra voice there, but you did wrap up. So thank you so much, Mr. Karasik. Okay, so over to our third speaker, Mr. Risto Uutiainen, the Deputy Region Mayor for the Regional Council of North Karelia in Finland. Now, North Karelia hopes to transform itself into a region free from fossil fuel oil that is self-sufficient in renewable energy production. Please go ahead. You have 3 minutes. Please take the floor.
Yes, thank you, and thank you also for the opportunity to attend this roundtable. I come from the east part of the Finland, bordering the Russia, called North Karelia. So, in our vision, is briefly said that our region will be climate sustainable by 2030, and we made our own first program. It's 2014, and new one is accepted this year. And we use the words climate-wise activities or climate-wise manners. And Finnish national goal is to be carbon neutral by 2035. So our aim in North Karelia is to be forerunner even in this Finnish context. So as was said, peat is our issue in Finland, and our regional goal in phase out of peat for energy use is by 2030. How we do it, and what are the priorities of this transition process? So there are not one solution. First of all, economic diversification and modernization, reskilling, upskilling, R&D activities to develop new ways to substitute peat in greenhouses and agriculture, restoring peatlands used for energy, and also to develop other economic and climate-wise uses of those peatlands. And finally, how to inspire other regions in their journey. So think smart, use your smart specialization processes, activate young people and local actors. These attraction and traction activities are essential for the future, and it's not always the easiest one. Face the transition in a positive way and see possibilities and to get solutions. Thank you very much.
Greece to Georgios Kasipidis, the governor of Western Macedonia in Greece. Thank you for joining us. So Western Macedonia's economy is largely dominated by lignite, so brown coal mining. Greek government vows to close those plants by 2025. Georgios Kasipidis, you have 3 minutes. Please go ahead. Mr. Kasipidis, you will have to unmute yourself, please. Thank you.
Yes, it's okay.
Perfect, we can hear you. Please go ahead, Ms. Kasipidis. Thank you. 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Hello from Greece. My region, Western Macedonia, was until 2019 the energy heart of Greece. 50 years of lignite exploitation have led to air and soil pollution and have had a big impact on public health. At the same time, up to 20,000 jobs, direct and indirect, were created by this production. First and foremost, the just transition for Western Macedonia means the as immediate as possible creation of the number of jobs lost due to decarbonization. The new production and development model must focus on energy and green technologies. Renewable energy source installed with a plan and in harmony with the environment, hydrogen production as a fuel and for energy storage, energy efficiency buildings are a few practices pursued by us. Rural development with zero CO2 emissions, fingerprint products is also part of my vision. As a society, we must take a turn towards the agriculture and livestock sector, and especially to the green agriculture, in order to have a successful fight against the climate change. Nowadays, with global food crisis, this is more obvious than ever. A high-tech region where technology, innovation, and research and development thrive is a personal goal of mine. We want to create an interaction between our university and the business world, so to have more tech and R&D companies located in Western Macedonia, making the best use of our human resource and scientists, and as a result, reversing the brain drain to brain gain. We see to the transition as an opportunity to become more functional and example of efficiency, e-governance, and accessibility to our people. We want to become the greenest region in Europe. Our actions can show the way to a more sustainable and green future, and to a complete transformation of a whole region from a lignite-based economy to a tech and green technology energy role model. If, or better, when we succeed, more regions could be encouraged to dare such a huge transition. For the transition to be just, your help is indispensable. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you to our opening for invitees. Okay, so Executive Vice President Timmermans, you heard there from Greece, Hungarian, Czech and Finnish regions. They've spoken about reskilling the workforce. Some have mentioned AI, robotics, learning from the past, preparing their workforce. What have you made so far?
Well, first of all, what they all have in common is incredible ambition. And that's an excellent point to start with. Secondly, what they don't have in common is the phase in which they are. So this is a challenge for all of us at the European scale to address transition in the different phases where our coal mining regions and other regions are. The third comment would be that most of the regions have comparable ambitions as to where they see the opportunities of the new economy. And I find that striking, but I also find it surprising that none of you would point, as far as if I listen to you correctly, to industrial opportunities in other than in new energy, digitization, robotics. For instance, the new mobility will lead to huge opportunities for zero-emission cars. I think coal mining regions, especially if some of the components of batteries or other components would be available in that region, could be part of such an industrial development. What I do see as something you have clearly indicated is new energy. And I have, I think hydrogen is an incredible potential for the European economy, because we will need hydrogen for difficult to abate sectors, for mobility, on road, but especially shipping and aviation, and as a storage facility for renewable energy. I would, because coal mining regions have huge experience with logistics, physical infrastructure, transportation. You know, in the new energy world, we will need enormous grids, new grids, digitized grids, smart grids, but we will also need batteries, big batteries, for storing of renewable energy, and hydrogen for storing it and then getting it to the place where it needs to be. And I would assume that many of your regions have already an advanced potential in terms of that infrastructure and in terms of those logistics. Just a few comments on the basis of what you have said.
Vice President, and let's see if the other regions those plans for industrial speak about. Okay, so over to our fifth speaker. We have Brand Wiesebol, the Vice Governor of the province of Groningen in the Netherlands. The Netherlands has a near total dependence, 92%, I believe, on gas and heat. So the rising outcry of the danger of earthquakes from Groningen sealed a decision to end gas extraction by 2022. Mr. Brand Wiesebol, please take the floor. You also have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Vice President of the European Commission. I am very happy to tell you today the story of Groningen and our region, the Northern Netherlands. My region, Groningen, is the main target region in the Netherlands for the Just Transition Fund. I hope I can inspire you and you can inspire us. I will give you a short introduction of our region so you will better understand who we are and where we are coming from. Groningen is a border region in the periphery of the Netherlands. As a gas mining region, we largely depend for jobs on the energy and the industrial sector. But the gas mining causes both earthquakes and greenhouse gas emissions. The latter as well by the gas mining, but also because a lot of industrial sites are in this region. Gas mining is no longer considered safe and sustainable. Our national government has decided to close the gas mining in Groningen down by 2022. Although we are happy with this decision. By the way, only this week, we again had an earthquake on 3.2 on the Richter scale. But this decision gives us a big socio-economic challenge. This comes on top on the social-economic task our region already has. It means that the current industry faces a transition to alternative energy sources on a short time. Around 20,000 employees who are currently employed related to the energy sector and threatened with job loss or change of skills and activities. Most of all, it gives us extra urgency in accelerating the transition and improving our broad prosperity. I'll tell you now about our vision. Above all, we approach the transition as a possibility to a better future for our workers, for our business, and for our citizens, for the future of the generations. Greener, safer, and more secure. Our mission is to become a strong and contributing region in the center of Northwestern Europe. In short, our Just Transition Plan contains 3 parts. Firstly, we will strengthen our regional economy by stimulating new economic activities and developing our knowledge infrastructure. We will stimulate innovations within and across sectors. Secondly, we will reduce greenhouse gas emission and rely less on fossil raw materials. We will help businesses to switch to green raw materials. We will support new and green value chains, making use of renewable energy. Thirdly, we will develop a strong and inclusive workforce. We stimulate lifelong education and development. And we stimulate social innovation, especially for the part of the population that needs it the most. The Northern Netherlands are an ideal testbed for all areas of energy transition, green value chains, renewable energy, and improving broad prosperity. I hope we can inspire our regions with the opportunities we see and our learning experience, learning from each other practices will help us exploring interesting opportunities. The last.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Riesevaux. I'm going to have to cut you off because you are going over your time. Okay, so now we go on to our next speaker, Mr. Michele Emiliano, the president of Puglia region in Italy. Now, Italy's Prime Minister Mario Draghi has insisted that tackling climate change is central to his country's economic growth. But what's Puglia's contribution? Mr. Michele Emiliano, you have 3 minutes.
A lei, dottor Emiliano, la parola.
Saluto tutti e tutte con grande affetto e con gratitudine per quello che l'Unione Europea sta facendo per noi. La Puglia è un caso contemporaneamente molto grave ma anche straordinariamente interessante per la transizione giusta, perché ospitiamo i 2 impianti industriali che emettono più CO2 e più sostanze inquinanti d'Italia. La più grande acciaieria d'Europa a Taranto e una delle più grandi centrali a carbone d'Italia a Brindisi. Bruciamo ogni anno circa 6 milioni di tonnellate di carbone e i dati sanitari sono molto preoccupanti. Ci sono anche processi penali di disastro ambientale e di avvelenamento di sostanze alimentari presso le corti d'assise. Le corti d'assise in Italia sono i giudici che giudicano i reati di omicidio, di strage, i reati più gravi, quindi è una situazione di gravità straordinaria. Ma grazie al JTF noi potremmo convertire all'utilizzo con tecnologie diverse, mantenendo l'occupazione che, come voi vedete nella slide, è elevatissima. Ci sono più di 18.000 lavoratori che sono implicati in questo processo. Noi potremmo restituire salute ai nostri cittadini, dare al nostro sistema industriale una competitività che deriva dall'abbassamento delle emissioni e dell'impatto ambientale e costituire un esempio per tutta l'Europa, ma direi per tutto il mondo, delle modalità di produzione dell'acciaio, del quale evidentemente non solo non possiamo fare a meno, ma non vogliamo fare a meno, con modalità meno inquinanti, con una transizione che comincia attraverso l'utilizzo di forni elettrici a gas, ma traguardando nel prossimo decennio Taranto soprattutto come luogo dove il Politecnico di Bari, uno dei 3 politecnici italiani, possa progettare assieme all'Unione Europea, assieme all'Italia, il polo nazionale dell'idrogeno. Siamo la regione che produce più energia eolica e fotovoltaica in Italia. Abbiamo tutto in regola per produrre nei prossimi anni l'idrogeno che può servire a sostituire il gas nella gestione di questa gigantesca acciaieria che, ripeto, è strategica per il nostro paese, ma, e questo è il punto di debolezza, il governo italiano non riesce ancora a definire il destino di questa fabbrica e le modalità tecnologiche di gestione, nonostante sia entrato di nuovamente nella proprietà di questa fabbrica. Quindi noi siamo a disposizione della Commissione europea per esercitare nel limite dei nostri poteri costituzionali tutta la pressione possibile sul governo italiano perché definisca il futuro di questa fabbrica e sia coerente sotto questo aspetto con gli impegni internazionali. È inutile dire che il ringraziamento che ho fatto all'inizio non è formale. Senza il contributo dell'Unione Europea, della Commissione Ambiente, della Commissione Crescita e oggi del vicepresidente Timmermans, le nostre speranze di una transizione giusta a Taranto sarebbero molto più piccole. Noi continuiamo a lottare assieme a tutta l'umanità per un futuro diverso e Taranto è la prova che l'Unione Europea fa sul serio, che l'Italia fa sul serio. Grazie.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Emiliano there. I'm sure the Executive Vice President really appreciated those thoughts. Okay, so over to our 7th speaker. We have Daniel Lecker, the Vice President in charge of European Affairs at the Hauts-de-France in France. The third industrial revolution in Hauts-de-France, based on energy transition and digital technologies, aims at changing behaviours and transforming the economy. Daniel Lecker, you have 3 minutes. Please go ahead.
Oui, tout à fait. Merci, merci de nous donner l'occasion de mettre en lumière les initiatives que nous engageons pour favoriser cette transition juste appelée de ses voeux par la Commission européenne. Je veux dire naturellement que la région des Hauts-de-France est un territoire générale et de manière parfois plus dure pour l'ensemble des territoires de notre région des Hauts-de-France. Alors c'est vrai que nous avons du coup travaillé sur l'ensemble des fronts, une mutation industrielle, une mutation sociale, avec de la formation, de l'accompagnement des populations vers ces nouveaux métiers. Et le commissaire européen nous a montré qu'il pouvait y avoir des opportunités économiques vers une diversification de notre économie. C'est ce que nous avons voulu faire et c'est la raison pour laquelle dans notre stratégie de spécialisation, nous avons insisté sur les filières les plus impactées par ce changement de modèle, au regard notamment de leur inscription territoriale et de l'ensemble des conséquences qu'il pouvait avoir sur notre économie régionale. Et en résumé, aujourd'hui, notre vision de la transition juste, c'est d'accompagner l'ensemble des secteurs économiques, l'ensemble des territoires de la région de Hauts-de-France et toutes les populations qui vont être demain impactées, afin que notre économie soit plus résiliente et en capacité de résister aux différents aléas que nous avons pu connaître. Et je crois que sur ce point de vue, nous sommes bien engagés dans cette mutation. Alors, vous dire que nous avons évidemment des opportunités à saisir dans notre région avec une économie très forte en matière notamment de mobilité, donc dans lesquelles nous savons qu'il y a des opportunités à tirer. Nous avons la chance d'avoir aussi un historique très fort de dialogue social dans notre région et on sait que ce dialogue va être important pour accompagner les populations et pour ne laisser personne au bord du chemin. Nous avons aussi un tissu économique avec des formations de pointe, j'allais dire une population formée et mobile en capacité d'accompagner cette transition économique. Et puis enfin, un travail de territoire avec la valorisation des circuits courts, avec une répartition équitable sur l'ensemble du territoire régional. Donc vous voyez que la transition juste, permise notamment par l'intermédiaire de la Commission européenne et de l'initiative que vous avez lancée, trouve en région Hauts-de-France une application très concrète et, je l'espère, la plus efficace possible.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Lecker. Okay, well, back to our Executive Vice President now. So did you hear those concrete plans and ambitions that you were looking for?
Yes, I did. And if I want to mention a common issue here for the three regions we have just heard, it's the workforce. So how do you skill and reskill the workforce so that the jobs come to the region? Now, we are in a unique position in European history that even though in some parts of Europe unemployment is still relatively high, our demographic situation dictates that we will need every single European to have the skills to fill jobs if we want our economic activity to stay high, if we want industry to stay and to innovate. We need to be able to fill the jobs. We're not even able to fill the jobs in many areas now, not because we don't have the people, but the people we have don't have the skills they need. So I think one of the biggest challenges we will be facing, and this particularly affects the Just Transition region, is to give our people the skills they need to fill the jobs of the future. This, I believe, should be addressed in very close cooperation between the European level, the national level, and the regional and local levels. And with the incorporation of the interested industrial players, sectors in the economy, So in a triple helix approach, you have the governments at all levels, you have all the educational facilities at all levels, and you have the private sector involved at all levels, not just the big players, but also small and medium-sized enterprises. Only if all of this works together will we be able to give people the skills they need to fill all these jobs. Now, that's easy, relatively easy, in tourism, in the services industry, etc. But that's much harder if you want to attract high-tech industry, if you want to attract hydrogen-based economic activity, if you want to go from coal mining to data mining. You know, these are very specific skills that people need to be able to acquire. And I think this is a common challenge for all regions. And we at the European Commission really very much want to be part of the development of plans that would address those challenges in your different regions. And I'm really very much keen to be part of that. Final comment, because it's a very specific issue. Taranto, for me, is also, I made it very personal. I said, for me, Taranto is one of those examples where we need to prove that we can make green steel in Europe. If we can find a way of producing steel with green hydrogen, that means that you offer jobs, that you continue to produce steel, but that you put an end to the terrible, terrible environmental problem that is caused by the present way of producing steel in Taranto. So we have several places in Europe where this is the case, but Taranto is a very explicit example of what needs to be done. And just to be clear, the Italian government is very much on this page, so I hope we can continue our intensive cooperation on that issue. Final comment. With all this we need to do for the workforce, we need to make sure we have social partners fully involved. So trade unions are indispensable in all of this transition. In this triple helix that I mentioned, the trade union should have a pivotal role.
Okay, over to our 8th speaker, from the plenipotentiary of the board of the Wielkopolska region in Poland. Now, Eastern Wielkopolska, the major Polish lignite brown coal mining region, and has 2 coal-fired power stations. The mines and plants employ around 4,000 people, and its goal is to end the use of coal in the energy and heating sectors by 2020. Maciej Sitek, you have 3 minutes. Please go ahead.
Dziękuję bardzo. Witam Państwa serdecznie. To, co jest niezwykle istotne, jeżeli chodzi o transformację Wielkopolski Wschodniej, w ogóle Wielkopolski, to przede wszystkim bardzo jasno wyznaczone cele. 2030 odejście od spalania węgla i wydobywania węgla w energetyce i ciepłownictwie, a w 2040 osiągnięcie neutralności klimatycznej. Być może, tak jak moi przedmówcy mówili, niektóre kraje mają dużo bardziej ambitne plany, natomiast my w Polsce wydaje się, że Wielkopolska jest tutaj jednym z takich regionów, które jak gdyby nadają ton właśnie transformacji, jeżeli chodzi o Polskę. To, co jest istotne i to, co my uważamy za najistotniejsze, jeżeli chodzi o regiony węglowe, to nie tylko stworzenie nowych miejsc pracy, czy przejście z energetyki klasycznej w energetykę odnawialną, ale przede wszystkim zbudowanie nowej tożsamości regionu. Uważamy, że to, że mieszkańcy zaczną utożsamiać się ze zmianą, którą chcemy wprowadzić, będzie najważniejsze. Mieszkańcy nie tylko, czy górnicy, nie tylko zarabiają pieniądze, ale także dumni są ze swojego regionu. To, co myśmy stworzyli, to Wielkopolska Dolina Energii, która oparta jest właśnie 2 cele podstawowe, 2030 zaprzestanie wydobywania węgla i 2040 neutralność klimatyczna, ale przede wszystkim to, co w naszym przypadku jest istotne, to, że mamy jasno określone jak gdyby inteligentne specjalizacje, w których chcemy realizować te nasze cele. Po pierwsze, technologie odnawialne, źródła energii, to jest jak gdyby jedna z inteligentnych specjalizacji Wielkopolski Wschodniej. Druga taka ważna to jest elektromobilność w takim wydaniu, produkcji ewentualnie baterii do samochodów, tworzenia miejsc pracy właśnie w tych nowoczesnych przemysłach. I trzecia to technologie wodorowe. Ale oczywiście to nie wystarczy, żebyśmy osiągnęli neutralność klimatyczną. Nasz cel, jeżeli chodzi o Wielkopolskę Wschodnią, to do 2030 roku zmniejszyć emisyjność CO2 o 90–95%, redukcję emisji gazów cieplarnianych o 55%, czy zwiększenie udziału OZE o 32%. I to są jak gdyby cele, które chcemy osiągnąć. Natomiast pozostałe 5 lub 10%, które chcemy osiągnąć i chcemy zredukować w taki sposób, żeby osiągnąć neutralność klimatyczną, chcemy to zmienić w transporcie, w logistyce i w głębokiej termomodernizacji. Mamy około 90 000 budynków, które musimy ztermomodernizować w Wielkopolsce Wschodniej. Mamy bardzo ambitne plany, także mam nadzieję, że je zrealizujemy.
Okay, thank you. Those were some very good plans to hear. Okay, so to our ninth speaker, to Thomas Gottfried Schmidt, the Minister for Regional Development and the Free State of Saxony in Germany. Now, I'll give you 3 minutes, so please go ahead. Sie dürfen.
Ja, vielen Dank für die Möglichkeit, heute hier sprechen zu können. Ich möchte im ersten Teil auf die Vision, wie die Frage ja war, eingehen und dann bei der zweiten Frage nochmal auf die konkreten Stärken, die wir haben. Die Lausitz muss sich definieren, das ist eine von unseren beiden Kohleregionen, als eine europäische Modellregion für den Strukturwandel, als eine Zukunftsregion. Theoretisch könnte man sagen, die Lausitz liegt am äußersten Rand Deutschlands, am äußersten Rand Sachsens, auch am äußersten Rand Brandenburgs, aber europäisch gesehen liegt sie im Herzen Europas, grenzt an die polnische Republik, genauso wie an die tschechische Republik. Im Umkreis von 2 Stunden, 2,5 Stunden liegen die wirtschaftlich starken Zentren von Berlin, Leipzig und Dresden in Deutschland, genauso wie Wrocław in der Republik Polen und Prag in der Tschechischen Republik. Und deshalb ist unser Ansinnen, unser Ziel, es wirklich europäisch diesen Übergang zu denken. Und das setzt als erstes bei einer erfolgreichen Zusammenarbeit auf kommunaler Ebene an, auf Bundesländerebene in Deutschland an. Wir werden auch einen Vertrag abschließen mit unserem Nachbarland, mit Brandenburg, um diese Zusammenarbeit zu verstetigen, aber auch über die Grenzen der Mitgliedstaaten hinweg. Diesen europäisches Denken beim Transformationsprozess ist meines Erachtens sogar ein Baustein, ein Mosaikstein für überhaupt eine erfolgreiche europäische Zusammenarbeit. Und die Kontakte zu unseren Nachbarn in Polen und Tschechien sind hervorragend und wir sind auch beeindruckt, wie unsere Nachbarländer, ich war jetzt gerade wieder in Polen, auch diese Prozesse ganz zielgerichtet angehen. Wir können also gemeinsam voneinander lernen, die lokalen und regionalen grenzüberschreitende Zusammenarbeit festigen und hier gemeinsam diese Ziele des Klimawandels, der grünen Transformation angehen und am Ende erfolgreich auch gestalten. Gemeinsame Wege heißt natürlich auch Hemmnisse beseitigen. Ein Punkt ganz zum Schluss möchte ich noch nennen.
The final speaker for our first roundtable, Mr. Juan Cofino Gonzalez, the Vice President of the Principado de Asturias in Spain. Now, Asturias has 2 coal mining basins, known as the Central Asturian and Western Asturian. Closure of its coal mines is set for 2025. Vice President Cofino, you have 3 minutes. Please go ahead.
Buenos días a todos y a todas desde Asturias, en el norte de España. Muchas gracias por esta invitación a participar en esta discusión tan relevante para nuestras regiones. Asturias ha pasado de ser una región con una importante actividad de minería de carbón y también de generación de energía eléctrica a partir de centrales térmicas, a ser una región en la que ya no hay prácticamente actividad extractiva de carbón y en la que las centrales térmicas bien han sido cerradas o bien tienen todas ellas planes concretos de cierre o de transformación. Es decir, para nosotros, para Asturias, la transición no está en nuestro futuro cercano, sino en nuestro presente, en nuestro día a día. Y esto viene siendo así ya desde el año 2018. Y desde luego creo que esta es una situación que la Comisión Europea debe tener en cuenta, debe prestarse, entendemos, una consideración especial a los estados y las regiones que estamos muy avanzados en este proceso. Las regiones con una transición más acelerada deben recibir, a nuestro juicio, mayor apoyo en este momento, pues otras dispondrán de un periodo de tiempo mayor para recibir estos apoyos e inversiones institucionales. Con las aportaciones de todos los sectores implicados, como fruto del diálogo social, hemos definido nuestra estrategia de transición justa para que hasta el año 2030 se creen aproximadamente 6.300 nuevos empleos y se movilice una inversión total de cercana a los 6.500 millones de euros. Un segundo elemento de nuestra visión sobre la transición justa es el de la diversificación de nuestra economía. Estamos pasando ya de un modelo industrial basado en el carbono a un modelo económico que parte de diversas fuentes de energía, así como de una mayor variedad de sectores, y en el que es fundamental la digitalización. Y para que esta transición justa sea un éxito, ya hemos establecido la arquitectura institucional mediante la creación de un comité asesor de fondos europeos en el que participan todos los principales actores y agentes de la región y una oficina de proyectos europeos cuyo principal cometido es el análisis de los proyectos empresariales nuevos. Creo que nuestras acciones en materia de transición justa, que pueden ser más inspiradoras para otras regiones, son precisamente nuestra apuesta por el diálogo social y la colaboración público-privada, por una parte, y por otra nuestra firme apuesta por la transición como proceso ya del presente y no de un futuro próximo. Nada más y muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, that closes the first roundtable. And I go back to the Executive Vice President, Frans Timmermans. So we've heard from all the regions now. Before you answer about what you've just heard, at COP26, you said that you don't want to leave a world behind where your grandchild, your one-year-old grandchild, will have no food or water. So perhaps about 3 years ago, before this pandemic, before Brexit, before fuel shortages, that might have seemed like political theatre on your behalf. But right now, we're actually living through actual crises. So have you heard enough from these regions? Have they been ambitious enough? Are they up to?
Well, I honestly believe if we don't change our ways, and I feel backed up by science, if you look at the latest IPCC report, that we would have such shortages of water and food that our children would be fighting over it. Parts of our planet will become inhabitable. We were just listening to a representative of Asturias. Parts of Spain will become desert if we don't change our ways. But it's no need for this to happen. We have the solutions. We only need to speed up the implementation of the solution. And for that, just transition, I think, is essential. And then, you know, if I move to some of the comments that were just made, one of the areas that is particularly difficult at this stage in terms of energy consumption is the built environment. And one of the huge economic opportunities I see is investing in improving the energy consumption, and reducing rather the energy consumption of our built environment. That will lead to a renovation wave. That will lead to huge amounts of jobs in all regions to make sure we adapt buildings. And let's start with schools and hospitals and official buildings. Let's support our citizens so that they can increase the energy efficiency of their buildings. I think this is an incredible opportunity. And in parts of Europe, this is about heating. In other parts of Europe, it's mostly going to be about cooling. But the subject is exactly the same, energy efficiency. Now, the issue if you look at Lausitz, of trans-border cooperation, regional cooperation. I was actually personally a bit disappointed if we stimulated all the member states when they submitted their recovery and resilience plans to pay particular attention to cooperation across the borders in regions of Europe. And it turned out to be extremely difficult to get member states to cooperate with other member states in that development. So I hope that this example from Germany can help us find concrete examples. And we, the Commission, would love to support, especially those trans-regional cooperations that go across borders. I think, I would really ask you to stimulate the possibility to do that. And final comment I would like to make. Wielkopolska and Asturias have already gone through quite a number of changes. Wielkopolska is very ambitious. I know this. And I can have some understanding for a region like Asturias that said, look, we already went through a lot of transition without just transition funds. We did it ourselves. We did it in other ways. We want some recognition for that. I think regions who've done that deserve recognition for that, deserve support in complementing this transition. The one thing I want to add, though, which was also said, let's make sure we do this in a way that we help the economy to diversify, to not have economic monocultures in these regions. If you diversify your economy, you can also react in times of crisis better, because then the downturn in one sector can be accommodated with the upturn in another sector and vice versa. So I think diversification, economic diversification, will become one of the hallmarks of what we need to do in just transition. Let me stop here.
Okay, well, time now to go to our second roundtable and back to our regional speakers. So roughly just to remind you all that after 3 speakers, I will ask the Executive President Timmermans for his thoughts. Now, the question for all of you this time around is, what are the challenges and the assets in your region to promote economic renewal and make just transition a success? To all of you, I'll say this: we are running out of time, so I'm only going to give you 2 minutes. So please do hurry up and try to wrap up. Okay, so first of all, to Georgios Kasipidis, the governor of Western Macedonia in Greece, you have 2 minutes.
The region of West Macedonia is one of the poorest regions of Greece, with the highest levels of unemployment of young people in Europe and a grave demographic problem. And all this before the decision of our Prime Minister, Mr. Mitsotakis, for Greece coal phase out by 2025, which is actually happening much earlier by 2023. Up to 20,000 jobs were created around the lignite exploitation in the region, making the PPC the most important employer. One job in the lignite industry created 3.2 jobs on the local labor market. Our dependency on lignite is up to 42%. As it is understood, during the transition phase, unemployment will hit a record high in my region, and the danger of desertification lurks. Our youth is fleeing Western Macedonia in order to work in their area of expertise. Another challenge is the mines and the exploited land recovery and repurposing in combination with a lack of land for investments that can create long-term jobs. This will take years, and time is a luxury for us. Due to developed electricity distribution networks and obsolete spatial plan for renewables, there is limitless installation of photovoltaics and wind generators that not only do not create any jobs, but also occupy land ideal for agricultural, livestock, or industrial use. One of our most important assets is our human resource with the wide knowledge on power and energy-related working areas. With reskilling and upskilling them, they can be recruited for jobs in the green energy and technology industry. Because of the human resource and the energy-focused mentality of ours, as region, together with the most important European energy companies, we have submitted a considerable proposal to the IPCI for hydrogen. It concerns green hydrogen production to use for electricity, but also for energy storage, district heating and pipeline distribution located in Western Macedonia. Honorable Executive Vice President Timmermans, I think that there is no need to say how important your help and cooperation is for my region and for our future. Every aspect of transition presented by us today must be taken into consideration during the continuous design and implementation of the Just Transition Fund. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, over to our second speaker, Barbara Botos, the Deputy State Secretary in charge of Just Transition in Hungary. You also have 2 minutes, please. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Just agreeing with what Mr. Vice President said, yes, it's very important to meet as well local needs and to reach out. We have been working on the Life Integrated project for 2 years with 22 consortium members, including through 2 huge trade unions. And yes, we reached out to local stakeholders and they identified we need to go for solar industry, for pumped hydroelectric energy storage, for hydrogen industry, for aquaculture, for building installation material production, and tourism could be also a way out for them. It affects 2,100 people linked to the lignite plant, 5,000 companies closely linked to this sector, and also 1,000 more companies who are subcontractors to the lignite sector. We have to find their place. But first, we need to replace these lignite capacities with renewable and low carbon technologies, which is of course not the subject of the Just Transition Fund. However, without this, the transition is not meaningful. And after that, it's important to support related businesses in green economic diversification. It is important that all direct and indirect workers have secure employment. This cannot be ensured only by energy projects, but new green economic investments, which play a very important role. So just to sum up, existing subcontractors and suppliers can and should be linked to the new green economy investments and should have a role in the new supply chains. And also, when we are talking about recultivation, in Hungary, for example, we have to give approximately 3,000 acres of mine and industrial land for new functions to be filled in. That's why in the Life Integrated project and also in the Just Transition plan, we focus on green economic diversification, technological change, promotion of research and development and innovation, and encouraging the development of renewable energy infrastructure, green public transport developments, and sustainable repurposing of mining sites. So this is the whole aim, and we do believe by setting up and launching energy community projects, by setting example how to phase out lignite burning in households, and by repurposing mining sites, we can find new green economic opportunities in these most affected areas, and we can certainly have an impact on secondary.
Thank you so much, Ms. Botos. Okay, over to our next speaker, Zdeněk Karasik, the Deputy for Just Transition in Moravia, Silesian in the Czech Republic. You have 2 minutes also. Please go ahead.
Okay, so we have 2 main challenges in our transition process. The first one is brain drain. We want to stop this trend and change it to brain gain, and we want to do it through 3 A's. So one is attractive education, second one is attractive job and business opportunities, and the third one, attractive environment. The second main challenge is image of coal and steel region in structural problems. We want to come back to the position of the second growth pole of the Czech Republic, the first one behind Prague, and we want to do this in the next 10 years. With regard to assets which we build on and which we have, let's say, 5 major ones. The first one is culture of people, because there is a mindset of patriotism and let's say, we can say work hard, play hard culture of these people. The second asset is experience and tangible examples of success stories in transformation in the last 30 years. The third one is continuity of governance, because since 2016, to at least 2024, there will be a similar political coalition which leads this process. The fourth one is growing attraction of our region for investors, bringing higher added value research and development. And the last one, but not least, is growing number of regional SMEs which are successful on the global markets. For example, in orthoprosthetic in United States and in other sectors as well. So these are our major assets.
Okay, so over to the Executive Vice President, Mr. Timmermans, quickly for his thoughts.
Well, you know, a lot is linked to new jobs for people with new skills. I see that coming back a lot, and this will have to be in our focus a lot with all the interested parties. The second issue which I picked up from what you said is, you know, it's okay to exit out of mining, but then you have to have alternative energy resourcing. So that is absolutely true. That if we want we saw it in the energy crisis. If they have no alternative, they will want more coal or more gas. So we need to speed up our transition to renewable energy generation. There's a lot of jobs in renewable energy generation, both offshore wind, on land wind, and especially also solar, and everything linked to that, leading also to battery storage and hydrogen storage. So I believe that this is, you know, this energy transition per se is also a creator of new jobs. Then this work hard, play hard, Mr. Karasek mentioned. I can relate to that. I'm from a coal mining region myself. This is really very much the mentality of people in coal mining regions. But, and this is our experience, if you don't give them a new opportunity to work hard, and you think you can ease them out of coal with social security or things like that, they will also lose the love of playing hard. It is a combination. You need to give regions an economic opportunity. That will not be solved with social security. Of course, you need social security as a backup, but the only thing that works is work. And I believe this is extremely important because we have a different experience in my home region. And, you know, this is 50 years ago. I mean, you still suffer the consequences half a century later. So we have to be extremely careful when we help regions, that we concentrate first and foremost on economic activity that is accessible to the people living there. So, because coal mining, of course, you have coal miners who do the digging, but it's also high tech. Coal mining also always had high tech involved. You have the engineers, you have the people who do all the calculations, you have logistics, you have all the SMEs linked to that. I don't need to explain that to you, but this is something that needs to be widely understood, and you need to replace opportunity for all those sectors. And preventing brain drain is absolutely one of them. My region suffered terrible brain drain, and you never really recover from it if you let it happen. So there I would be exactly on the same line as Mr. Karasek said on behalf of his region.
Okay, so our next round of speakers. Reminder, the question is, what are the challenges and the assets in your region to promote economic renewal and make a just transition a success? All of you will only have 1 minute, and I will absolutely now cut you off. So don't let it get to 30 seconds, otherwise you won't be able to speak. Okay, so let's go to Mr. Yisebrand Riesebol, the Vice Governor of the province of Groningen. You have just 1 minute, please, sir.
Thank you. I believe that the real success of our strategy is that we focus on broad prosperity and listen well to our stakeholders. We build on what we have and we do it together. As scarce region, we look for alternatives for our industry and for our working population. For example, to green hydrogen. We want to improve the situation of our regional community, both citizens and businesses. And we took that into account when we drafted on our Just Transition Plan. Thus, we looked to set off interventions. I will give you a few examples. We help small and medium businesses to make their production process more sustainable. In the process industry, we make measures to electrify instead of using gas. We support smart coalitions, frequently cross-sectorial. We make it all to a success. We invest in training, educate, and reskill our workforce. We invest in our future generation by investing in their education and coach them into the green and a good future. Well, the last. The better idea is to visit our region and come and see it yourself. We in Groningen are known not for talking much, but to take action and work together to move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, to Mr. Michele Emiliano, the President of Puglia region in Italy. You have 1 minute, please go ahead.
Allora, solo chiave. Taranto è una delle città più belle della Puglia, contendeva ad Alessandria d'Egitto il primato come città della cultura, della bellezza, dello sport nelle Olimpiadi dell'antica Grecia. Era una colonia spartana. Adesso vogliamo lavorare restituendo e facendo crescere la qualità dei lavoratori, ristrutturando la loro professionalità. Questo può avvenire con i centri di ricerca che stiamo progettando nelle scienze della vita, delle biotecnologie. Il tecnopolo medico sul territorio salentino si connetterà a Taranto, produrre energia da fonti rinnovabili, innovare nel settore dell'ICT che dovremo sviluppare in modo particolare per la cyber security e per l'intelligenza artificiale, economia circolare, l'agritech perché Taranto ha un potenziale straordinario dal punto di vista agricolo e soprattutto turismo, perché la Hydrogen Valley che vogliamo realizzare a Taranto è l'equivalente di ciò che l'intera umanità deve realizzare nel futuro. Tutto questo è pronto. Il Politecnico di Bari, l'Università di Bari lavorano sulla formazione del capitale umano per attuare la rivoluzione di Taranto. Grazie.
Thank you so much. Okay, to Daniel Leckie, the Vice President in charge of European Affairs at the Hauts-de-France in France. You have 1 minute. Please go ahead.
Oui, alors, pour prolonger mon propos de tout à l'heure et les défis que nous avons à relever, la région de Hauts-de-France, je vous l'ai dit, a travaillé de manière très active à sa troisième révolution industrielle et l'ambition ou l'enjeu, c'est véritablement de faire travailler l'ensemble des filières ensemble de manière horizontale et verticale pour accompagner une réelle mutation de l'ensemble de notre économie régionale. Et cela implique évidemment d'investir dans la recherche, dans l'innovation et dans le développement d'un certain nombre de nouvelles techniques, pratiques de production fondées à la fois sur l'éco-conception et sur un certain nombre d'éléments qui permettent de réduire l'impact environnemental de notre industrie et de notre économie régionale. Ce changement de modèle, qui est un changement profond, qui est global, eh bien, implique naturellement que nous ayons une réflexion d'ensemble. Et cette réflexion d'ensemble doit se mener en relation avec les populations. On l'a dit tous au long de cet échange, il y a un enjeu majeur en matière d'accompagnement des populations, donc de formation des demandeurs d'emploi et de celles et ceux qui vont être touchés par cette transition. Il faut que nous puissions former à ces nouveaux métiers. Et nous avons la chance en région Hauts-de-France de disposer d'un écosystème de formation, d'accompagnement des demandeurs d'emploi qui est fort, qui est important et qui fait partie de nos priorités régionales. Encore une fois, cette culture industrielle qui a fait la force des Hauts-de-France, nous voulons aujourd'hui la convertir à cette exigence environnementale qui est une absolue nécessité pour permettre le développement de notre région.
Thank you so much. Okay, over to Mr. Risto Pitainen, the Deputy Regional Mayor of the Regional Council of North Karelia in Finland. You have 1 minute also. Please go ahead.
So thank you. We have two main challenges, and one of our challenges is this our northern locations, sparse population and climate conditions. So we have a long and cold winter, so we don't have it reflects to our energy choices. We don't have many alternatives for energy use, and that is I come up to the question was Mr. Timmermans raised up. So we need R&D, we need new solutions. We do have bioenergy, biomass, solar power and wind power, but we also need this hydrogen and geothermal options. So it's one of these challenges. Another one is this location of peatlands and the demographics of these areas which are used for energy. And we have also how this brain drain is going to up. But what is our results and the assets? I think we have the actors, good structures to development economies, science parks, startup actions, good cooperation structures, but also the R&D structures, and this high-tech solution is possible to create via these kind of actions. But finally, via this funding, we have the possibility to support this transition. Thank you.
Okay, Executive Vice President, I'm not going to come to you just now. We're going to go through the final speakers, and then you can comment after that. Okay, so over to Matra from the plenipotentiary of the Board of Wielkopolska region for the reconstruction of Eastern Wielkopolska, Poland. You have 1 minute. Please go ahead.
Dziękuję bardzo. Jeżeli chodzi o Wielkopolskę, to właściwie największe wyzwanie jest przed nami. Mamy świetny plan, wiemy, co chcemy zrobić, musimy to zrealizować. Myślę, że wszyscy dokładnie jesteśmy w tym samej sytuacji. To, że nakreślimy pewne plany, to jest podstawa. To, co dla nas było największym wyzwaniem, 2 obszary, czyli z jednej strony wsparcie dla pracowników i znalezienie dla nich alternatywy, i z drugiej strony to jest kwestia środowiska i zadbania, dlatego że węgiel brunatny, wydobywanie węgla brunatnego niszczy strasznie środowisko i to powoduje, że mamy z tym ogromne wyzwanie. To, co nas wyróżnia i to, co jest naszym atutem, to jest współpraca interesariuszy. Wszyscy są zaangażowani, NGOsy, związki zawodowe, bardzo duża działalność jak gdyby tych interesariuszy i to jest niezwykle ważne i myślę, że dla wszystkich. Otwarty, bardzo mocno transparentny proces działania. I drugi element, który uważam, że jest ważny, to także współpraca międzynarodowa. Tu zgadzam się z panem Schmidtem, że ta współpraca z regionami, które już przeszły i uczenie się od nich jest jednym z najważniejszych rzeczy, które możemy wyciągnąć z lekcji. I tutaj Platforma Sprawiedliwej Transformacji jest niezwykle pomocna, to żeby być międzynarodowo i działać. Dziękuję.
Thank you so much. Okay, to Thomas Gottfried Schmidt, the Minister for Regional Development in the Free State of Saxony, Germany. You have 1 minute, please go ahead.
Ja, ich möchte mich auch ganz kurz fassen. Erstens müssen wir klar definieren, welche Potenziale sind in der Region überhaupt schon da. Also in unserer Region Automobilbau, Fahrzeugbau, Mikroelektronik und weiteres. Was müssen wir für Probleme lösen? Das ist einmal neben der Energiewende natürlich Themen wie Recycling, Leichtbau, Implementierung neuer Technologien wie künstliche Intelligenz. Wie können wir Netzwerke schaffen zwischen der Forschung, zwischen der Wirtschaft, zwischen der Verwaltung und das alles noch grenzübergreifend denken? Drittens, weiterhin, welche Erfahrungen haben wir, auf die wir aufbauen können in Transformationsprozessen, auch mit europäischen Programmen wie LEADER, wie EFRE, wie Interreg, und wie können wir Hemmnisse abbauen, die beim JDF sicherlich auch wieder stehen, wie Beihilferecht, Wettbewerbsrecht, um die Ungeduld der Leute schnell Ergebnisse sehen, auch zu befriedigen. Und letzter Punkt, die Lebensqualität in den Regionen muss gesichert und muss erhöht werden. Vielen Dank.
Thank you so much. Okay, and then to our last speaker, Mr. Juan Cafino Gonzalez, the Vice President of the Principado of Asturias. You have 1 minute, please go ahead.
Sí, de forma telegráfica, yo quiero poner el foco no tanto en los desafíos de la región como en los desafíos colectivos, como comunidad, ¿no? Telegráficamente, nosotros pensamos que se deben remover las reglas generales de la Unión Europea en materia de política macroeconómica, todo ello para que, y reglas de gasto público para que la transición funcione correctamente, ¿no? Eso por una parte. al menos para las regiones en transición, los que estamos hablando aquí, ¿no? Creemos que también hay que poner el foco en las ayudas de Estado, porque eso hay que resetear esa situación. También pensamos que es necesario instaurar mecanismos de ajuste de carbono en fronteras. Sé que la Comisión Europea, sabemos que la Comisión Europea está en ello. También tenemos que analizar el actual sistema de comercio de derechos de emisión, para procurar una competencia libre y evitar procesos especulativos. En definitiva, ahí queremos poner el foco. Con respecto a la región y a las fortalezas, pues pensamos que nosotros estamos fuertes en los procesos de concertación social, hemos conseguido un pacto social en la región para la transición justa y creemos que la propia estructura económica e industrial de Asturias, con un sector industrial con trabajadores muy cualificados, 2 campus universitarios de base tecnológica y una adecuada interrelación entre todos los sectores económicos, son los puntos fuertes de la región. Quiero concluir con un apunte final y es que como saben, en la próxima edición del diálogo político de esta mesa, en principio se celebrará en Asturias, si el COVID-19 y la enfermedad nos permite hacerla presencialmente, quería aprovechar para invitarles a todos ustedes a viajar a Asturias y muy especialmente al vicepresidente de la Comisión, al señor Frans Timmermans. Nada más y muchísimas gracias.
Okay, so Executive Vice President, you were invited there. So what are your thoughts then on what you've heard from all of these regions?
Well, let me say I'm leaving for Spain tonight, but I'm not going to Asturias. I'll be in Madrid and in the Basque country in the coming days. But I'm sure there's going to be another opportunity to come to all of your regions. And by the way, Mr. Rijsbol, I've been to Groningen quite a lot, so it wouldn't be new for me. Well, what I retain from your comments, just a couple of thoughts. I like the idea of approaching it from a broad perspective on what is prosperity. How do you bring prosperity to a region? What elements do you need for that? And in that context, I would point also to the need of having good infrastructure, which is something that most of your regions already have to start with because of your economic structure, but which is not always infrastructure for the future. Do you have broadband everywhere? No. That is the infrastructure of the future. Do you have high-speed trains everywhere? No. That's the infrastructure of the future. I think Puglia, the big difference for Puglia will be when this high-speed train that was now promised is going to get there. Because we've seen in the past that people who make calculations for high-speed trains always underestimate the economic effect of a high-speed train being. So this is my first comment. Let's also have an integrated look at the infrastructure needs, not of today, but of 10, 15, 20 years from now, and how this could disclose, how it could open up regions to approach it through this idea of broad second comment. We are going through a paradigm change, a tectonic change. This is an industrial revolution we're in, not because of climate change only, not because of the biodiversity crisis only, also because of the industrial revolution. Digitization is going not to speed up gradually, but exponentially. And this is changing the very basis of our economies on a global scale very quickly. And anticipating that change and investing in economies that are part of that change is, I think, the best opportunity for just transition regions, including, of course, incorporating all of this into the skilling and reskilling of workforce, which seems to be a subject coming back in all many of the regions we're talking to are not centrally placed in the member states, but very often centrally placed in Europe or connected to other parts of Europe. So also trans-border infrastructure is extremely important in that context. This is also something we need to work on. Some of you mentioned the quality of living, the quality of life. And what is sometimes underestimated or doesn't really make part of the discussion is that exiting out of coal and lignite just saves lives. In this day and age, in Europe, every year, 400,000 people die prematurely because of air pollution. Pollution caused by coal, by oil, by our transport modes. So exiting out of coal, going for zero emission transport, etc., is going to save lives, and it's going to produce cleaner air, cleaner circumstances. I remember, that's one of the things I remember as a child, when the coal mines were closed in my home region, that all of a sudden the air was so much better. When my mother or my grandmother did the laundry, the sheets didn't get black on certain days when they were hanging outside with all the dust that was in the air. So we tend to forget these things, but these are also, in terms of quality of life, huge contributions. If you combine that with the quality of jobs, then you really get an impulse of quality of life. And I have to insist on the issue of jobs because it's not any old jobs. It is jobs with certain skills that produce sufficient salaries, because one of the bottlenecks we have in mining is that it's let's call them blue-collar jobs with higher salary. And for coal miner, that's one of the reasons why my grandfathers stuck to coal mining, because there's nowhere else they could make that much money. Not that they liked they were proud of being coal miners, but they also saw the danger. I lost an uncle in a coal mining accident. So we need to make sure that if we skill and reskill people working in the coal mining industry, we give them an opportunity to get a job that gets them comparable pay, what they are used to, because otherwise it won't work. So that's also a part of the choice you make for your economic mix in the region. International cooperation is essential. Did you know that Poland is now the biggest exporter of electric buses in Europe? Nobody knows that. Everybody thinks that Poland has a bigger challenge than anybody else. Yes, in some area it does, but it also changes quicker than anywhere else. So, and through international cooperation, we can bring this to all regions in Europe. It's a matter of looking not member states, but at regions, also between regions, looking at regions, as the representatives from Saxon just said as well. Let me stop here. My door is always open for cooperation directly with you. Our services are at your disposal if you have questions or if you want to seek cooperation. We have one thing we need to do, and that is to make a success out of this and to create enough optimism in our citizens that they will embrace change. Because if they are not optimistic enough, they would rather stick with the misery they're in than with the misery they expect. So we have to make sure that we give them a future that they can believe in. And then they will set the steps, even taking risks, they will set the steps into that future. And your role, because they believe you more than anybody else, because you're close to them, your role in this is crucial. Wherever I can support you in that role, I will be at your disposal.
Closing our closing session itself. Okay, well, a big thank you, of course, to all of our regional representatives. Thank you so much for sharing all of your ideas about your sustainable transition. I hope also that everyone who has been joining online has enjoyed this high-level roundtable for the 4th edition of the Just Transition meeting. I'm Miriam Zaidi, and it's been my pleasure to host the discussion from myself and the Executive Vice President of the European Commission, Mr. Frans Timmermans. Take care and bye-bye.